Hello. So, approximately 5 months ago, we as a school all went to Troutbeck and learned that we would probably have to do a history project about it. And the scary thing was, this thing is probably going to be a really big chunk of the history spring term grades. I'm taking a huge risk by putting casual language in the beginning. Hi. But nevertheless, most of us thought of the same thing when we went to Troutbeck. Why this one specific place as a focal point that not a lot of people have heard about? Reform has definitely happened in other places, so what's really special about this estate now converted hotel area? I personally chose to research the reform at Troutbeck, and though I didn't find a treasure trove of information, I found quite a lot to make a comprehensive thesis for why Troutbeck is special. Troutbeck has served as an absolutely beautiful farm, private estate, country inn, and tavern since the 1700s and has for centuries. It has been a rather peaceful retreat for guests involved in the arts, letters, matters of policy, and social justice. During this time of the estate's first owners, the Benton's family, Troutbeck was host to Thoreau, Emerson, and the naturalist John Burroughs, all very influential thinkers. During the early 1900s, Colonel Joel Spingarn and his wife Amy continued the tradition of housing intellectual minds. Spingarn was considered to be a very respected individual as well, being considered among one of the best American literary minds of his time. Being respectful and thus someone rather understanding of others, Spingarn attracted the attention of people like Sinclair Lewis and Lewis Mumford, with some also moving to Troutbeck. Joel and Amy Spingarn were both advocates for social justice and were very active in the civil rights movement. This inspired them to host meetings with the NAACP at Troutbeck twice, in fact. These were known as the Media Conferences of 1916 and 1933, which are the most interesting parts of the story of reform at Troutbeck, in my opinion. According to W.E. Du Bois, another member of these conferences, the objective of these meetings was to, quote, discuss with perfect freedom and without publicity the present situation of the Negro race. End quote. The immediate conferences were not labeled as NAACP meetings, but instead as safe spaces for individuals to discuss their thoughts and the future of African Americans in private. The first immediate conference was held in 1916 in August. W.E. Du Bois described it as, quote, the same slow, rocky uplift of land, the nestle of lake, and the sturdy murmur of brooks and brown rivers. I sincerely hope I drew that correctly. The first immediate conference in reality marked the end of an era and the start of another. As those in the conference said in resolutions, quote, the immediate conference believes that its members have arrived at a virtual unanimity of opinion in regard to certain principles, such as 1. All forms of education should be encouraged for African Americans. 2. That African Americans cannot achieve their highest development without political freedom, just like other races. 3. That this development and freedom cannot be furthered without understanding leaders of the colored race. 4. That all biases and, quote, ancient superstitions should be cast aside. 5. That the South is especially problematic in solving the issue of racism and that others working for the solution must be understood. 6. That everything in the conference is private, though preferable discussion could be printed in the Troutbeck press. And 7. That mutual understanding could be achieved through frequent meetings. Now, let's fast forward 17 years, and another conference took place in 1933. Again, through my limited research materials, the same conclusion was reached. The immediate conference gathered similar leaders to discuss in private the present situation of the Negro race, and that, quote, a new vision of the Negro's future would arrive from the independent discussion. The same few categories were also achieved, and overall the purpose of these conferences was essentially to find the best ways to find rights for African Americans, especially in the facets mentioned about 40 seconds ago in the video. It may have even inspired the New Deal from President Franklin D. Roosevelt, providing more support for African Americans during Reconstruction. But one thing still intrigues me. Why Troutbeck specifically? Why do we have to research this, and why were people so obsessed with it in the past? I think Du Bois put it best when he said that, quote, how appropriate that such a tremendous thing should have taken place in the midst of so much quiet and beauty here at Troutbeck. Now, I would like to focus here on the word quiet. Troutbeck was a safe space for the NAACP and all these leaders of the early civil rights movement to discuss without the publicity of the people. Even though Troutbeck had a printing press, there was nothing around for hours. The immediate conferences were essentially a symbol. It not only marked the end of old things and the old thoughts and the old ways of addressing race, but it became a mark for the new things because of this quiet. This is why we are doing this project about this place in this obscure property bordering the western edge of New England. I'm not great at outros, so thank you. subscribe. I don't know. I'm going to put an explosion here.